Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Ted Giovanis. He is a president and founder of the Jane Koskynis Ted Giovanis Foundation for Health and Policy that conducts research in the health, policy, and clinical arenas. He was previously president of the T. Giovanis and Company. Ted's work is included in both Medicare and Medicaid payment systems over the past 40 years in the health, policy, reimbursement, and advocacy arenas. He has helped so many people, but he also served as a hospital system CFO, controller, and internal auditor. Look, Ted also served as the chairman of the Maryland Community Services Community Reimbursement Rate Commission. Additionally, you're not going to believe this, but Ted is also an accomplished professional race car driver and team owner in the International Motorsports Association, a subsidiary of NASCAR. We had a great conversation about what really makes a team click, work, the ability to use humor, mentorship, and so much more. You guys are going to love this episode, so enjoy. Oh, I'm so thrilled to have you on. You've done so much in your life, young man. And I am just so excited for people to hear how you've accomplished so much and using humor in all that as well and having a bit of levity. So I thought we'd just start off by telling everyone about who you are and what you do.
Oh, well, it's probably it's best to talk about what I did and then come up to what I do now.
Okay.
And so, what I was a healthcare finance guy in hospitals mostly, and went into health systems, but basically became a health system executive. And then I morphed into working for my own professional association, which got me into Washington lobbying in a lot of different contexts. And then I evolved from that to working for one of the big accounting and consulting firms, which even broadened my network. And then in 1990, I created my own firm and was fairly successful in that. Had my own firm from 1990 till effectively the end of 2013. In the middle of all that, I discovered an error in the Medicare formula, which led to a large litigation that was resolved in 2012. And then from there forward, my life changed a lot because I set a course and decided I wasn't going to do what I was doing then. I was going to do something else. And I created a foundation, which today focuses mostly on metastatic breast cancer research. And so I kind of moved my career path into cancer research. And we work with and partner with a variety of different universities and researchers. And again, we pick researchers and then we work with the organization. So the researchers come first. Uh, they're the ones that are going to do it, and not the institution, so per se. So we have research projects going on in a lot of different places, and we partner with people in Europe and whatever through the same project. So it's a kind of a cool kind of experience because you're contributing on a societal basis, and you feel like you're helping and to move the ball forward, so to speak. And so so that's where I am today, and I'm also driving race cars. Well, I guess I probably shouldn't leave that out. And uh, uh, so uh, so it's
That old thing. Oh
well,
my God.
I'm I'm very fortunate that I can do this stuff and do it at a level that I'm doing it. So I got to
It's
keep doing
pretty incredible because I have to say I lost my mother-in-law to breast cancer,
it.
and I truly believe that if it wasn't for people like you doing what you're doing, and really that's what's going to make a difference in the end. All of us pulling it together and helping each other and doing research. So that's just incredible. And just you being a CFO, your own firm owner, and now you're a race car driver. Were you always an adrenaline junkie?
Yeah, I had. an affection for cars when I was younger, but never really had the opportunity to really do it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so then, as time went on, I eventually did that. And
Yeah.
I've been racing in some way, shape, or form since 1991, but since 2006 or seven at the pro level. And so we
That's
went.
incredible. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, okay, so we usually started off by, do you have a favorite joke you could tell us?
Well, I guess it would be this. I had reflected on that, and so it's probably this one particular joke. These two guys are driving across the plains of Texas, and they're just cruising along, talking just like friends. And then all of a sudden, the guy in the passenger seat points to the driver and says, "Look out the window." And he looks out the window, and there's this three-legged chicken running along the side of the car. So the driver says, "Okay, I'll fix him." So the next thing you know, he's going 95. He says, "That got him." Chicken's still out there, trucking along at 95 miles an hour. Next thing you know, they're going 125 miles an hour. He said, "Well, that fixed it." Chicken is still there. So they whiz past this driveway. There's nothing around, and the chicken veers off and goes up the driveway. And so they are overcome with curiosity. They come to a screeching halt, turn around, go back, and go up there. And they meet the farmer, and they said, we couldn't help notice this chicken ran up your driveway. Is this your chicken? This three-legged chicken?" Farmer says, "Oh, yeah, it belongs to me." And he says, "Well, what gives with the three-legged chicken?" He said, "Well, my wife, really, she loves a chicken, and specifically, she loves the chicken legs. So what I did was I breeded these three-legged chickens so my wife could have more chicken legs." And so the guy says, "Well, that's really cool. Well, how'd it work out? How'd they taste?" He said, "I don't know. I've never been able to catch one." So that's one of my favorite jokes.
I love it. Oh my God. It's so
I can't
dumb.
catch it so fast.
It's so dumb and so good.
I know. Sorry about that.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. And you know what? It's so interesting because so often I do find people who come from a healthcare industry point of view do have a great sense of humor. Because that's what's gotten them through working in such and you've done so much good work, especially lobbying and policy changing and all that. That's like getting to the bottom of it for real.
Yeah,
When you were, yes, go
yeah.
ahead.
I mean, I mean, it can be stressful. It can be a stress relief, or it can be a distraction, whatever you want to call it. But um, it sort of helps you deal with uh, what you go through.
Yeah. So how were you incorporating humor into your leadership styles when you were I mean now you're head of a race car team, and just working in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my humor before and when I was in more of an institutional setting is different from what it is now, because
Yeah.
what happens is your humor is calibrated to the environment you're in and who you're talking to. So, as an example, the kinds of humor I would use in a healthcare environment in an executive capacity is different from the humor that I have with my co-drivers
Of
at the
course.
race team, or even farther with the cancer researchers. And so, what I usually try to do is it starts off I think early on, it started off being a stress release or getting me comfortable with the environment and those kinds of things. And then it sort of morphed into helping the listener get more comfortable and um, realize that I wasn't a big wheel, so to speak, that I'm different than that. And so it, but it, and that loosens up a freer flow of communication in other dimensions with your staff or with even with your clients. And so
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so interesting because it's really knowing who your audience is.
that is absolutely correct. And one of the things, so I made some notes to myself knowing that we would be doing this,
Yeah.
and that it's you got to be able to read your audience and read the recipient of your communication. And I guess a lot of what I've gone through in my whole career has been related to a guy that he was my mentor, but he didn't realize he was my mentor. It was a
Mm.
guy who named Mike Vance, who used to work for the Walt Disney Organization, and he was the head of innovation and creativity. And what um, uh, he did is he gave me um, certain principles that you lived by, like um, one of the things you alluded to with my career. He basically said nobody has a right to retire. Can't retire. And he used to believe that if you retire, you got to forfeit all your chips in this game of life. Now you can redeploy your time and do
Yeah.
something else, and make do this or that, or do podcasts or whatever. So that's what he said. No, nobody has a right to retire. But then um, he used a lot of humor in his presentations, and so I only met him one or two times, and that was as somebody that was in the audience, so to speak. So it wasn't
Right.
like I worked for him,
Yeah.
but these principles that he would espouse, and he used humor. And he would always say, he said, a lot of people criticized him for joking around too much. And his
Right.
response was always, if you miss the points in the humor, you're going to miss the points in the points. So you got to get
Yes.
used to. And so it was possibly because of that mentorship that kind of set me on a path to accept humor and its role, uh, and different things. And I'm not saying if you and I work together, we'd be telling jokes all day. It's not that. It's
Absolutely.
um, and humor can take different forms with different people, and so
That is so true. Like, it really can. And it really separates the fact that you took it on and found it worked so well for you that you wanted to implement it into your leadership style, as, really, it does resonate that deeply with people, and it really does help us move forward. Times are always going to be tough. There's always going to be stress going on, but it's how we adapt and cope with the stress that it's causing. And humor can really help us in those situations.
yeah, and you like I said before, you really and you alluded to it. You've got to read who the person is,
Yeah.
and whether they let's face it, some people like humor and some people don't. Some
Yeah.
people see humor in X but not in Y. And so you're going to have to read that and then calibrate to whatever that is. And also the environment is changing as well. The context in which our humor rests and our work rests is all changing. And so um, uh, I've used humor in across so much of this my career, which is over 40 years. So um, it's like you gotta you gotta you just gotta read the
The
situation and
audience.
read the
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Well, that was something Mike Vance always used to say.
Yeah.
If you're going to communicate, you got to start from where they are, not from where you are.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That's so smart.
Well, I mean, if you're, in a crude way, I mean, if you're trying to explain higher level mathematics to somebody and you're a
Yeah.
mathematician, you can't start from where they aren't going to get it.
Yes.
So you've got to do some relationship building blocks, meaning relate it to things that they might relate to.
Yeah.
Their daily life, their work, their research, et cetera, et cetera. So
Ted, can you give us an example of how you would use humor
uh,
back then?
well, I'll tell you one which in and of itself might be a humorous thing.
Yeah.
I was working with a big consulting firm. I think it was somewhere between 1987 and 1990. So it was that long ago.
Yeah.
And it was when um, the hashtag Me Too movement was
Right.
evolving, and that uh, somewhat changed the dynamic between men and women in the workplace. Um,
Yeah.
so I happened to at the time have this very attractive young woman working for me, Carol, and she was from North Carolina. And Carol comes in her Southern accent says, "Ted, how come you never pay me any compliments?" And I thought for a minute. I said, "Well," and she knew how. I said, "Well, Carol, okay, you look a lot better today than you looked yesterday." And she said, we both laughed. She said, "Never mind." And uh, and then we went on our ways. And I think that she was, I mean, we had a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And she was like, it was almost like, "I'm sorry I asked," because it was not the answer she was thinking of. But and she knew instantly that I
Yeah.
was pulling her leg, so to speak, that I was making fun of it,
Yeah.
fun of the situation. And but we were in that kind of an environment. Um, um, I mean, I mean, I can give you another one if you want.
Oh, I'd love it. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
I was a VP of finance at a health system, and there was another VP there of medical affairs, a guy named George. And George was much older than I was at the time, maybe 30 years, and so he was nearing the end of his career, and I was just going up the ladder. And George had one leg. He had lost it to cancer and walked with these crutches that had cuffs around your forearms. You've probably seen them; they're aluminum.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would go down to Baltimore and I would go running with a guy at the hospital association. And so I unfortunately left my running shoes there. So I come back up. Next thing you know, George had gone down there and he brought my shoes back. And so I come into my office and there's this brown bag on my desk. And the lady that worked for me said, "Hey, Dr. Simons," his name was George Simons. "Dr. Simons left the shoes, left you something on your desk." So I go over there, pull them out of the bag. So I got these running shoes in my bag. So I said, "I'll be right back." And so I go over to George's office and I said, "George, you brought me back these running shoes. Thanks for bringing them back." But I said, "George, now he's got one leg now." I said, "George, did you run in these?" And without thinking, he says, "Well, no, but Steve might have." And I said, "No, it would have had to have been you because one's worn more than the other." Well, he takes his crutch, throws it across the room at me. But it was our relationship was so
Yeah.
strong in that he was like throwing at me, get out of here. And so, and George knew I wouldn't mean him any harm,
Yeah.
that I wasn't making fun of his disability.
Yeah.
Well, and
Absolutely.
so it was it was just it, it made him laugh. It
Yeah.
made him me laugh, and it's like is I guess it's out of the strength of what you have already derived in the professional aspect of your relationship that
Yeah.
they understand that you're not uh, trying to make fun of them
Yeah.
or and it's that. And the same thing I have found applies to junior staff. And so it's based on your behavior that they know you're not kidding around. Um, they know you're professional based on your successes or what you're trying to do for the work environment and the organization you work for. So they sort of understand this. Now, some people that you are removed from, maybe you're 2 levels, 3 levels up. I didn't mean that in a bad way, but
Yeah.
they might not know you.
Of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
But then they know of things that you've done for other people that are above them that,
Right.
like you fight for raises for them. So they know where your principles are and where your
Yeah.
heart is. And so they know that if you're making you're making a joke, that it's not anything that's pointed at them.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so interesting because I was actually a cleaner at an AIDS hospice in the early 90s. And I actually loved working there. And I used to have to clean, there's like 14 clients' bedrooms in there,
Yeah,
hospital rooms. And I would clean one of the rooms. And one of the gentlemen there, his name was Stephen, and he was going blind from the disease. It was affecting his nervous system. And we had a great relationship. So I started switching everything in his room around as he was going blind, so he'd have to find it. But he loved it because it was a sense of normality. It was someone teasing him and having fun where
yeah,
so many people were feeling sorry for him. So
yeah.
we actually became quite good friends and had so much fun only because I was cheeky and, put a little bit of a spin on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times those folks, they become comfortable with where they are, and
Yeah.
they don't want to be treated like the exception. They want to
Yes.
be like more like the rule, the a normal guy or girl,
Yeah.
and so that's sort of where they're coming from. It's really kind of cool.
Well, and I think it's also like you just seem like down to earth, and that levity really brings you to that point grounded,
Yeah.
and secure and vulnerable at the same time, which I think is incredible. Do you find that humor has really helped with your when you have been working with teams and different clients with collaboration?
Yeah, and although I can tell you, when you get to scientists and
Yes.
researchers, uh, you have to be good at ferreting out where they are with regard to humor, because a
Yeah.
lot of them are, if this is the right expression, more cerebral. They're
Right.
more contained within their brain, and it's almost as if I found folks that are into higher level mathematics are not, um, their interpersonal skills are different.
Right.
And so you have to understand what that is. And I think that also, um, I would be remiss if I didn't say it's my humor style has, and breaking the ice has changed as I've matured.
Mhm.
Um, and when I was younger, I would probably be more self-conscious about myself.
Right.
And then as I matured, I'm willing to. It it doesn't matter if I admit mistakes. So
Yeah.
I came from a position where, if you admit mistakes, then that's something for somebody to criticize you about, to a position that if you admit your mistakes, that's something to learn and grow from.
Yeah.
Those are two different polar opposites intellectually of coming to grips with that. So, and
There's
it's just something that happens, and if we're fortunate, it'll happen. Meaning, and
yes,
because
absolutely.
because um, that's another um, you know kind of Mike Vance thing. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes, and so that's sort of,
Absolutely.
and you need to reflect on them, and
Yeah.
it's admit that they happen, and then try to see what you can do to fix them so it doesn't happen again.
Yes, well, as a comic, you're preaching to the choir. When a joke doesn't land, you're like, "Okay." But it could just be that one word that needs tweaking or,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
all good though. It's as you're working through this stuff. It's
Yeah.
not, and there's no magic bullet. I don't think there's like you do this thing and everything's going to be fine. And it's like, um, it's just like for comedy, you're gauging your audience,
Yeah.
and they could all be different. There's a there's an age dynamic, and that's another thing with comedy. You uh, some people don't like it if you make fun of them,
No,
and you're like, and but then there's other ones that say,
bring
yeah,
it. Yeah.
she's talking about me, but she's kind of right. You know,
Because yeah,
it is me,
absolutely.
and
And there's many ways, different ways to bring humor into our lives. It doesn't have to be, the joke or whatever. It can be naming a room a funny name or, within a company. Have you, when you were, what are the benefits you've personally experienced while from incorporating humor into your life or into your leadership style?
yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I mean, it's made me a little bit more connected to the people around me,
Yeah.
and uh, be, when I was working in a institutional setting with like a health system, uh, my boss criticized me because I had finance and everything related to it. Man, it's about 1,200 people, but I spent 80% of my time outside of finance,
Wow.
and it was so my direct reports knew who I was.
Right.
And but my boss once criticized me because what are you spending time out there for? And I said, well, my direct reports know what to do, and if they don't do it, they know what I'll do. So they're fine. I said, I need to know what's going on in the rest of the place.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I did. But a consequence of that was people that worked for my direct reporting folks may not have known who I was. So I had to make sure that, like, as I was uh, at some point in time, it's called management by walking around. So I knew what
Yeah.
was happening up in the hospital with the doctors and all that. I had to make sure I did the same thing with the staff that were under me to walk through and make sure they knew who I was. And I wanted them, not in a bad way, but I wanted them to understand that I was approachable, that they could say anything to me,
Yeah.
and that good or bad, and about the organization, about what was happening. You want to figure out what's on people's minds, and
Yeah.
so you need to give them a sense of comfort with that. But it would take me a little bit of time to use humor on them until they knew that I wasn't, Attila the Hun, so to speak. I was the bad guy
Yeah.
that would come down on everything. And but there were other things that we had done to um, get them to be more comfortable with that. So
That's amazing. Are there any tips you'd like or advice you'd like to share with other leaders to give them a bit of confidence for using humor?
well, I mean, I think you got to be comfortable with yourself, and that
Yeah.
leads to um, um, and we're gonna. I think we have to differentiate um, style from
Hmm.
you know um, other performance aspects. And so I said, um, I I would say, once you're comfortable with yourself, then you can be yourself with these people,
Yeah.
and you can um, all the time. I mean, I've engaged in self-deprecating humor
Yes.
that is- they'll at the first time they go, whoa, he actually made fun of himself, and I'm like, right.
Yeah.
And but that it's a growth experience. It's a learning and growing experience for you intellectually and as a person. So I think, like I said, you need to uh, be yourself. I
Yes.
guess that's the biggest thing.
So now
And
you're racing. Are you, which I can't believe, you have to, like, how long is each race? A couple hours?
yeah, the races we engage in are endurance races. So most of them, there's 8 races a year that are 2 hours,
Yeah.
and 2 races a year that are 4 hours, and then there's one race that we race in another series, the upper series, which is the 24 hours at Daytona. So we've done
Oh
that
my
before.
God.
Well, that requires, I mean, you have to have co-drivers, obviously, somebody
Yeah.
doesn't do it. But in the 2 hour races, the minimum drive time is 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so however you
How
want to
fit
slice it.
are you? Oh my God. I
Well,
can't even imagine.
it becomes a lot harder with age, and
Yeah, I bet.
it's harder to keep yourself fit. I think basically there's a fitness where you want to have you want to have strength and endurance. So that's
Yeah.
generally not bulk. There's also mental acuity, which we get by
Yes.
being in a race car, but there are sort of exercises you can do to help you with that.
Right.
And then there's certainly there's diet. So what um, I do is
Are you all protein?
no, and I'm bad. I shared a dessert last night with my lady friend, so
Oh, I
we
like
split
it.
a we split a piece of cake. This is
Yeah,
like,
you did. You got to
yeah,
eat cake. It's good for your child self.
yeah, but it's all good. And so, but no, with the race team, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a special bond that happens when you're racing that's
Yeah.
different than that you want to build that kind of bond with the work experience and the company you're with, and so you can do that in any number of ways. But um, you can't have the guy or girl that's mad with you putting on your wheel.
Right.
That usually, if it's not on right, it doesn't lead to anything that's positive. It leads to something that's it's just a
True.
matter of how negative it is. And so, um, but there's ways to deal with the folks on the race team,
Yeah.
and humor can play a role in that too. But as long as they understand where you're coming from
Yeah.
and where your heart is, as they say, then you're sort of fine. But in a work environment, you can use that same kind of concept in dealing with people. It's like um, I don't know if it's funny, but we had a time. There was a time at the health system where we were uh, our what they call our days of revenue outstanding were too high. We had too much in accounts receivable,
Okay.
so we were cash poor.
Yeah.
We didn't have cash, so we wanted to figure this out. So I said to the guy that was Mike, who was the head of the billing and collections, I said, "Yeah, we got to figure this out." And he said, "Well, you and I ought to schedule time. We'll have a meeting." And I said, "No, you need to schedule time, and we're going to have a meeting with the billing and collection people,
Ah.
and they're close to ground zero. They are it." And so what we did is we had a meeting with these people,
Mm-hmm.
um, which were predisposed to be ladies at the time.
Right.
And um, so I come in and don't I have my suit pants on, but just a suit shirt sleeves rolled up, and I sit on the floor in the middle of them all. So I'm below them.
Yeah.
And so we proceeded to have this discussion where Mike explained to them the problem, and then we had this discussion with each person giving their ideas about what they thought we needed to do to improve it. And Mike would write them down, and I mean they would be things like, "Well, we need an extra photocopier in here. We have to run
Right.
across the hall to get this, and so if we had one here, it would be faster and whatever." So we got them a photocopy. It's that type of stuff, and from that they know, A, you'll act on their inputs, and B, there's some kind of a level of trust. And I wanted them to open up, which is why I sat on the floor. I know
I
it
love
sounds
that.
crazy. It sounds real, but I wanted
Yeah.
them to not feel that I was superior to them in any way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. So I kind of tried to dispel that myth
I love it. You're
and just
such a
say,
great leader. And
and
all these lessons I think are just really going to help people who are, coming up in the ladder and knowing that they can, have a little fun and sit on the floor. I think that's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, but and like
And
I said,
everything that's symbolized.
yeah, you have to be tasteful, tactful in how
Yeah.
you deploy these things. And then it's all back to what you alluded to before, and I think I said you need to read the people, and
Yes.
um, um, just like your experience, there's some people you can joke with in a certain way, and then other
Yeah.
people not so much. And so
Absolutely.
once you do that, but then if you're dealing with somebody in an audience and you can make a humor connection with one, maybe that permeates to the others, the ones that
Yes.
are, the one that didn't want to come or didn't want to be there.
Yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's another thing that Mike Vance said. He used to say, um, a lot of you people in the audience look like you're not the people that need to be here.
Right.
And he said, I'll tell you one thing. You listen to me, I'll tell you how to get rid of the people that sent you. And uh, so that was his way of
Yeah.
injecting humor into it. But there was a more truth to that, in
Yeah.
not like, you go do this behind Kate's back kind of talk.
Yeah.
It
I
wasn't that.
love
It
that.
was just
Yeah.
conceptually how do they work, how do they the style
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. It was really um,
So
so he was a
cool.
yeah he was a I was when I everything I've looked back on in my career, and it all boils down to mentors.
Yes.
And the better the mentor, the earlier you're exposed to them, the more of an impact it can have.
Amazing. Amazing. So we always like to end Humor in the C Suite by asking you, what is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you? Do you
I
have a
don't
story you like to share?
know. I probably got a couple of them, but one thing the one that came to mind, it was a long time ago. I was doing a project in Puerto Rico, and I was working with a guy named Kike. It was short for Enrique,
Okay.
and he had a guy named Tony who was from New Jersey in his firm, and so I go down there and we're working on this project, and they want to take me out and have dinner and then have drinks, and so Kike's driving and we park in this parking garage, and so the next thing you know, we're out. And then the next thing you know, we went to a bar and we're having drinks, and so now they got to come. It's not overly late, but it's late, and so we come back and we go to the parking garage, and the garage is all locked up. It's caged up. And Kike starts yelling at me because you could see the sign through the cage. He says, "This place closed at 8. Why didn't you tell me that?" I said, "Kike, it's written in Spanish. How am I supposed to know? You guys are from here. You're supposed to tell me about it." So, in any event, we managed to. It was a really bad section of Old San Juan, so we had to walk through all these alleys. And Tony picks up this 2x4, and I said, What are you doing with that?" He said, "I'll be last. If anybody tries to get us, I'll fight them off with the 2x4." And I'm like, what kind of a place are we in? So anyway, we finally go back and get to a taxi and go to Kike's house, and he got locked out of his house and had to climb over the fence, and because he didn't want to tell his wife where he had been and what
Yeah.
happened. So we don't ever know what he told her to take him back to get his car the
Yeah.
next day. So I mean, but but that was kind of it was more of a situation that we
Yeah.
got
But,
ourselves in,
you
and I'm
know,
uh, like, this is your guys' turf. It's not my turf. I don't know anything about San Juan, and so that
amazing.
was, but that was you know kind of funny. I hope it's
It's
people find it
perfect.
humorous.
No, it's perfect. And I just love all the lives you've lived and how you've incorporated humor into all of them. Whether you're dealing with your racing team now or whether you were CFO of a hospital associate, like it's incredible, your journey and how many people you've helped.
Yeah, I mean, well, we at the end of it all, that's where you gotta look back and you see is anybody better off for you having been around, other
Yeah.
than your immediate family. I know people
Yeah.
provide for your family and for your kids, but you're just trying to make you're trying to make a difference at some level,
Yeah.
and that's sort of I mean the second book I wrote, Focus Forward, is just that. It's trying to get people to focus forward and to not worry about the past.
Yeah.
Just and uh, um, don't let that get to you, because forward is where you're going, and you get to pick where you're going. And so I concentrate on that rather than
Yeah.
worry about um, um, and when with my kids when they were younger, they were always like, this one did that to us, and what do you mean
Right.
to us? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Let's try to figure out what else is happening. We can deal with that in the
Later.
instant,
Yeah.
but then let's go forward.
Amazing.
Anyway,
I'm so grateful to have you as a guest and for your time and everything you contributed today. Truly, truly amazing. Thank you so much.
no, no, thanks. Happy to be on, and if it helps, if
Yes.
anything I've said helps one person, it's all worth.
I want to come see you race.
From knowing where you are,
Yeah.
Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville is probably the closest,
Oh, yeah. That's
and
so
and,
close.
and that's more or less. It's the second weekend in July each year,
Okay. We got a
more or less,
date.
more or less. But I'm glad to have you.
Oh,
Welcome you to come.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ted.
All right, no problem. Thank you.